Well, greetings, everyone. My name is Kate Rademacher, and this is Writing for Your Life, our second Tuesday discussion group for spiritual writers. And I'm really thrilled because today I have a friend and colleague here, Shemaiah Gonzalez, who is, excuse me, I know from, excuse me, I know from other, yeah, I have my water here. We're talking about discouragement. So I'm often running with a moment of discouragement as my voice catches. So Shemaiah and I know each other from a couple of other writing circles, and I'm just so delighted we get to hear from her today, her wisdom about discouragement and the anecdotes to discouragement, how we can think about success and as writers and provide support and encouragement to one another on the journey. Shemaiah is the author of a wonderful new book called Undaunted Joy, and I'm hoping she's going to tell us a little bit about it as she talks with us about the topic for tonight, dealing with discouragement. Just a couple of housekeeping things for those who are just coming in. I know a bunch of people are coming in off the waiting room. If you're here live, we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat, including where you're calling in from. And also, if you want to, in the chat, share a recent small or big success in your writing life. That can be as small as, you wrote a sentence today, or as big as you got a book contract last week. Anything you want to share with the group that's a tiny or big success or celebration or cause of joy. And I'm going to hand it over to Shemaiah. And Shemaiah, if you can just introduce yourself and tell us, a little bit about yourself and who you are. And then I'm really excited to hear your thoughts about how to deal with discouragement as a spiritual writer. So welcome and thanks again for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is fun. Um, I prepared some notes, you guys, but mostly I kind of just want to be free and breezy, which I am not a free and breezy person. I am very structured and I have my lists. So this is something new for me. So I thought I'd try it. I am a writer. Um, my background is in Victorian Lit from my undergrad, and then I went to seminary at Multnomah Seminary and then got MFA at Seattle Pacific. I have two teen boys who are humongous. They are 14 and 15, and my 14-year-old is 6'5", so I like to tell everyone that because he's huge. Um, and I've known my husband since I was 14 years old. I met him on my first day of public high school. I thought he was an absolute jerk. Um, and turns out we became friends throughout the years, and we started dating when we were in grad school in different states. So 13 years later, we finally start dating, and we've been married for 22 years now. And he's not a jerk. He's not. Or he's grown up, or I've made him better. I don't know, but he's wonderful. I wrote this book that just came out 2 weeks ago, Undaunted Joy, The Revolutionary Act of Cultivating Delight, and it's with Zondervan. And I just realized that I did not put my timer on so I don't babble forever. So there we go. Um, it is a collection of essays. So they're really bite-sized. A lot of people have told me that they just read one or two before bed to help them have sweet dreams before they go to bed at night. And it's about finding joy in the mundane and the magnificent. And so there's some essays that are a little silly, like my favorite pants, finding the joy in my favorite pants. And then there's some that are more theological, like the joy of letting God love you. And I argue, like C.S. Lewis, that joy is the presence of God in your life, and that joy is transcendent. It is different from happiness. Happiness is based on our circumstances, and joy is something else completely. Um, and so this collection of essays is not didactic by any means. It is just storytelling. Um, I make it very clear that I don't know anything. Um, I always, when people go, "Oh, you went to seminary?" It's like, yeah, I paid, however much money it was to realize that I don't know anything and that I'm still learning. And so I talk about the disparity between I've struggled with depression in my life. I've had some background of abuse in my childhood, but it's by knowing despair and struggling that you can tell the difference in the contrast between despair and joy. And so I'm just going to tell you a couple of the table of contents just to just to wet your whistle. It's like joy of naps, joy as an act of defiance, joy in capybaras. Oh, you guys, I'm weird. The joy in Van Gogh's sunflowers, in laundry, in a small moment of a haircut, and even confessions of a killjoy, because that was me. That was me. Um, when Kate talked about celebrating our small successes, I really wanted to speak to that. Something that I address in the introduction to the book, where there's a little moment where I had a neighbor come over, and I started getting really let me back up. The moment was a friend come over for dinner, and we're cleaning up, and he says he'll take out the trash for us as we're wiping down the counters. And I get the trash bag together for him, and then I realize I'm going to get to use the new trash bags. And I kind of like go a little overboard about it. I'm like, "Oh, I love these trash bags. They're like the new ones, and they smell good, and they have flex force." And I realized that I was like almost in a commercial, like it seemed like there was a camera on me and I was just too overboard. And I felt really embarrassed. It was one of my husband's colleagues from his law office. And I was acting like that. And he grabbed the bag, and without even like a double take, he goes, you have to get excited about the small stuff. He said, the big stuff doesn't happen that often. And when it does, it's usually bad. And that line just stayed in my brain for years because it's true. It's like a lot of times when the big stuff happens, it's something devastating. And at that moment, I realized like graduation had already happened for me. I had gotten married, got my first car or whatever the thing was that's supposed to be so exciting. And that I felt like I only had a few big moments to look forward to in life. So it was then that I decided I needed to celebrate those little wins. And I was going to talk about this later, but I want to piggyback on that. So please do share your small wins, whether it's something in writing shared in the chat or something just in life, because that's how joy grows. There's also a line from, oh, I'm sorry. Where is it? It's at the end of it. Um, a line from Anne Sexton's poem, Welcome Morning, where she says, joy that isn't shared dies young. So share your joy, and it's contagious. There's no limit to it. Um, I want to speak to that too, about finding your people that you can share that joy with. Um, Writing is so lonely. We're just, here's my little office, and this is, I mean, I take my naps here. I mean, I can live in this room. And it's so hard when you're just sitting here and you're in your own head. And so to have those people, I say start with three. I mean, if you look at your texts right now or your emails, there's probably some writer or maybe even a non-writer, but someone who kind of gets you, um, that you can just start making a list of those are your people that you can reach out to. And when something's good, you share it with them, you know? Also, those are the people that if you publish something, have them share it on social media so that it keeps rolling or like it, just how just seeing that bolsters you and encourages you. So just build that community for yourself. Start with three people and just keep it steamrolling. I mean, keep that list going. Um, I've been doing that with I'll mention that later, but I've been doing that with a writing group. I've been doing workshops and trying to help people foster that community with each other during the workshops as well. Um, when one of the questions that Kate asked me was, when do I experience discouragement as a writer? And right now, if you look at my texts with my writer friends, all of us are lamenting that we don't have time to write. It's like, a lot of them are teachers. I do coaching, and it just seems like, when can I actually write? I long for that. I want that, and I can't even find that time to do it. Um, and then there's some sort of guilt or frustration or anger that it's almost like a cycle, because then you feel frustrated at yourself because you don't have time to write, and that you need to do other things to pay the bills or to take care of your family. And I remember going to a conference. It was Glenn Workshop. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, with Image Journal, um, where some women writers were talking about this and feeling like they never had time to write. And one of the ladies said, "Don't look at it as you need to square out an hour. Look at it as 5 minutes, and that it's like a treat for yourself, you know?" And my friend and I were sitting there listening to that, and she was like, "That really speaks to me. Like, I can handle 5 minutes. I don't have an hour in my schedule, but I have 5 minutes." And so she started, I'm sure all of you guys have a journal, and she started bringing her journal with her um, to the things where she dropped off her kids, swim practice or at a game, and said, "Ooh, they're occupied. I can do something for 5 minutes." And she ended up writing a whole essay, 5 minutes at a time, in her journal, and then typing it all out. And then she did get it published. And then just knowing that she did that in just these small increments, um, and that she could do that, I just, like, that was encouraging to me. And I feel like that's doable. I think we can all handle 5 minutes. So I want to encourage you in that, instead of looking at, oh, I need to have a weekend at the sea, and I'm going to wear this certain outfit, and there's going to be coffee and silence, and some of my best work has been, and I don't know if you can hear him, but my son is practicing violin right now. Some of my best work has been at his violin studio. I drop him off, I sit there while he has lessons, and there's like 5 different lessons going on around me, and I don't know, the buzz and the energy, the creativity, and all of a sudden I'm like, I got work done. So I guess it's a lot about reframing and having different expectations, you know. And then you're not discouraged in yourself. And you can look at that little bite-sized 5 minutes, 10 minutes as a treat for yourself, where you're nourishing your own soul. What else did I want to speak to you guys about? I want to speak to you about joy and some of the aspects about joy that I think will encourage your spiritual writing. Um, so often it's a frame of, write about what you love. You know, sometimes you get an assignment or you feel like you need to do this, but if you tell it through the lens of what you love, it comes out and it flows more easily. Um, a lot of joy is about gratitude, and you hear that all the time. And I can think of the little samplers in Airbnbs that say something like, be grateful or whatever but reframing your life of just being grateful for tiny little things, it adds up and it creates a whole life of joy. Um, I'm just going to make you guys do this right now. Like, if you have a sticky or a piece of paper or something, write 3 things that you're grateful for, that just in your life, in the room that you're in, or in your day today. Um, I can say one is my son playing violin upstairs. Um, if you play an instrument or have someone in your life that plays an instrument, you know that it's a struggle, that there's ebbs and flows, and sometimes you're in the zone and sometimes you want to give it up forever. And he's been struggling with that and he's playing right now. Yay! Also outside on the other side of my computer is a window looking out to my yard. And all day it's been hysterical watching blue jays and bunnies in my yard. Um, and that's given me great joy. And okay, since I made you guys do 3, I'm gonna do 3 too. Okay, hold on. Hold on. Oh, today I had earlier today I had a Zoom with my paid subscribers, a book, like a book club, for my book. And my childhood friend that I've known since I was a baby showed up. And she's actually in the book. And just to see her on there, I had to tell everyone, you guys, this is Sarah. She's in the book. So there's my 3. And I know that you just feel better telling the stories of joy and also writing down your own, you just feel better inside, like your shoulders are a little more relaxed. And those, like I said, it's like how C.S. Lewis talked in Surprised by Joy. God was trying to get his attention through imagination, through education, and through relationships. And once he became a Christian, he looked back at his life and he saw where God had been drawing him to himself through those moments of joy. And for each of us, it's different because we're individuals. So, you know, gardening might not be one person's thing, but it might be another person's thing. So God is very specific in how he meets you in that space. Um, Another thing about joy that I wanted to point out is it's about being in that present moment, which is very difficult and takes a lot of work. Um, I'm an anxious person. I'm a worrier. I'm a list maker. Um, but learning how to be present for each other, present for God, present of what's going on, like giving yourself permission to look at the bunnies and the blue jays that are outside my window. Because isn't that what we are as writers? We're noticers. We're people who notice tiny little minutia details that would drive everyone crazy. And sometimes we don't even give ourselves permission to be in that moment and to be a writer and to notice those tiny little things. Um, I got caught the other day. I was going to meet someone at their house, and outside their house, they had these bushes that I don't know, they looked like they had a fun texture. So I stopped before I went up to their door and I like touched, I wanted to feel the texture. And sure enough, I look out and he's looking out the window watching me and I look like a weirdo. But thankfully, he was a writer too, so he knows. But it's like, you're curious. Follow that curiosity. Let yourself be in that moment and experience it. And then another thing about joy is a fruit of the spirit, and it is a fruit of knowing God. And there are so many plans that I had for my life. And when I finally just said, fine, and surrendered to God, my life is so much better than what I had planned for myself. A lot of it is reframing, but but Jesus just showed me a different way of living that I couldn't even imagine. Um, when we surrender control to him, situations that once seemed difficult are viewed in a new light. I was just telling Kate before all of you came in, and if you read my book, there's allusions to it, but I don't go into detail. But there was a lot of abuse and poverty in my life and in my childhood. And now I look at it as a grace, which is a weird, strange place to be. And I was telling Kate this, the last 5 years or so, when just my father was very emotionally and psychologically abusive. And I felt like the last 5 years where there's been just a lot of mind games and a lot of propaganda. I felt like, oh, I know this. I lived this before. I can see through it. And there was such an odd grace in that. And I talked to my younger sister about that, and she said, I feel the same way. She said, but I didn't know how to articulate it. I feel so grateful that we went through what we went through. And that's a weird thing to say. Um, but I think that's a result of just letting God love you and experiencing that grace and surrender in your life. Um, Another strategy I wanted to talk about for combating discouragement is something I found in an odd place. I don't know if any of you have read Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act. It's fantastic. It's very short. So Rick Rubin is a well, not just hip hop, but he's a producer. He did Beastie Boys, he did Run DMC, he did Johnny Cash, he did I know there's some hard rock stuff that he's done too. And he's not particularly a person of faith. He's more of a spiritual person. So more general than religious. And something he said in his book and in a couple of podcasts really spoke to me. He talks about your work, your active creativity, as being a gift or an offering that you give to God. And that just reframed everything because then it doesn't matter if it's not perfect. You're giving it to God and you're laying it at his feet and you're saying, this is what I have to give you. And I just found that very, very powerful. And it's also reframing your writing as an act of worship when it becomes a sacrifice or an offering, whatever that word, a grace, a gift, um, that you're giving to God, it becomes worship. And that just changes everything. You're just doing all that you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just being with him in that moment. Um, I already told you another practical step about just making a list of 3 people and having that list grow. Um, Not just people to celebrate your success, and of course, you will also celebrate their successes. And share the good things that they have done. But people that you can pray for and ask them to pray for you, or someone that you can ask to have second eyes on a piece of work that you've just started to look cross-eyed at, and just to uplift each other and cultivate and just a culture of abundance. Like writing can be so competitive and it's like, ah, they got published with such and such. No, you had a part in that. You were encouraging that person. They're part of your group. Like you're excited for them. There's enough for everybody. And my one of my people on that list that I talked to this morning is my friend Luella. And she's just a prolific writer. And she writes about the connection between religion and children's literature. I can't do that, you guys. That's her focus. I'm a storyteller. I'm folksy. Like what she does is amazing, and I want to encourage that and uplift that and be part of it as much as possible. And she does the same for me. So just living in that space of abundance instead of competitiveness. That's just that's hard on everybody. It's hard on you, if you're the person that does that. I'm sorry. I realize I've been babbling for a while. Um, so I'll leave you guys with that and we'll open up for questions, but also I'll just do a little plug that on June 7th, I'm going to have a workshop it's a generative joy workshop. So we're going to look at 3 different pieces of joyful writing, interact with that writer as a group, and see where it leads us to have some seeds of writing for our own work. So it's just 2 hours. And hopefully, when you leave the 2 hours, you'll have the beginnings of 3 pieces that you can cultivate into full pieces afterwards. So I've done this workshop before and I've had good feedback. So I think it's fun. And if anything, you'll laugh and smile and have 2 hours of happiness. So I'm sure we'll add the link or something later, or you can just look me up. And I'll hand it back over to Kate.
Thank you so much, Maya. That was a great. I've like smiling the whole time we've been talking because I feel your joy and I feel encouraged just listening to you. So
Mm,
thank you so much. And for those who maybe didn't hear this, or maybe you said it before we actually started, Shemaiah rhymes with papaya. So now
yes.
you know how to address our wonderful speaker. And we're going to open it up to questions or comments. We've had some great people have been sharing little big and small successes and joys in the chat. So I've been loving reading those. Um, so you can come off mute if you want to ask questions, if you want to share a particular discouragement or area of struggle for you, or just, share your own strategies of joy. You can come off mute and do that, or you can put them in the chat and we'll try to go through those and read them. But I'm going to start with a question Shemaiah, of my own. You touched on this in a couple different ways. You talked about abundance rather than competitiveness, which I love, and sort of not just celebrating others' success, but recognizing that you're actually a part of that success, like you're
Yes.
kind of one of the midwives or doulas of others' success. So I think that's really great. But I think so many of us um, struggle with, or at least I do, like we start off writing because it connects us with God and it's part of our relationship with the divine. And then we end up fretting over our commercial success. And, that there's this like initial impulse to writing. And then there's this like secondary like obsession with, are we successful? And if not, then it's not worth it. And like, how do we sort of short circuit that pipeline? Before I think we started the event, you were talking about you have another book proposal ready to go, but you're kind of waiting for the numbers on
Hmm.
book number 1. And I was thinking, gosh, what a vulnerable moment, because again, all this joy you're putting out into the world is then sort of, marked with a numeric sales number, that. So, I'm just trying to articulate something that I really struggle with. And then
Yeah.
I sort of chastise myself or try to reorient myself to sort of why I'm doing it in the first place, which is to
Yep.
connect with the sacred. Um, but I keep getting pulled into this temptation of discouragement because I'm not successful from my capitalist or commercial perspective.
Yep. I'm right there with you. I'm actually in that moment of struggling like hourly. Yes, I do check the Amazon ratings several times a day to see where my book's at, you know? I mean, you know, that's just how it is. And yes, I have a proposal and I don't know if it'll get taken depending on the sales of this. Um, but I also And I'll struggle moment by moment, hour by hour on this. I mean, it's just the reality. At 2:08, I'm checking the Amazon list and seeing if I'm being mentioned online at all. And then at 2:15, I'm thinking, Lord, this was all for you to begin with. Why am I doing this? And then also like if this isn't successful, I think to myself, what else will I do? Where else will I go? Only you have the words of eternal life, and this is an act of worship. I mean, this book, if you guys read any of it, and I know Kate has, I think you can tell, like it's just an act of worship. And the time that I got to spend with God creating it, I will spend the rest of my life trying to find that moment again. So what else am I going to do? I mean, that's the real of it, you know? Um, and once you reframe your life in this way, like if I go work at McDonald's, I'm still gonna have fun and find God at McDonald's, And I'm gonna notice all the little things about the French fries and the ice cream machine and the people that come in. So it's just how we're wired. And one of the things that like a tactic that I might share with you, like a practical tactic, I think is returning to writing in your journal. I feel like that helps a lot. Um, in the 10 years of me being in publishing, I've noticed that the summer gets slow, less work, like freelance work, and so does December. I mean, often I've already written about Christmas and Advent in around Halloween, you know? So I've kind of worked that into my schedule that there's going to be a few weeks in the summer and a few weeks in December that I'm not going to touch my computer and I'm going to just write slow hand and return to the love of simply writing. And so writing in my journal really helps. I hope I answered the question.
No, that's great. I think the point about journaling is really, really helpful. And I also just love hearing you because I think what we can all, and somebody wrote in the comments, I thought I was the only one checking my Amazon numbers, you know. And so I think one of the most encouraging things for me is talking to other writers, which is part of what I love about being in community and the Writing for Life community, is we get to say, oh, you do that too, you struggle with that
Yes.
also. And that what you said about 2:08 versus 2:15, 1 minute you're obsessively worrying and then the next minute you're giving it over to God and remembering who and why you're doing this in the first place, it's just so human. And I think all of us can relate to that. So let's open it now. If you want to ask a question or make a comment to Shemaiah, I would ask that you can just come off mute if that's easiest, or you can kind of wave at me, or you can raise your hand of the icon. I see that Elizabeth came off mute. Do you want to go ahead, Elizabeth?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. On your question, Kate, years ago when I matured as a Christian, I had to understand that Elizabeth is one person. She's not an office person, and she's not a Christian. She's Elizabeth as one person. So whether the work that I do is at church or at the office, the dependence on the Lord is the same. The expectations is the same. So that as I grew, I didn't look at myself as two and three different people. I had to understand all of my personalities were who I was, the good, the bad, the indifferent. All of my personalities, it is what it is. And I had to understand that because you remember telling my nieces and nephews, God is not going to love you if you're bad. But when I got more mature, I understood that was not correct. That was completely not correct. And he had to take me through a series of life changes for me to understand God is God. So whether I write the book today and it gets published and I need my numbers, whatever I'm doing, God is God and he's going to get me through it. And I'm not 10 different people. I'm only one. So every place I go, you know exactly who Liz is because you can tell by something she said or something she did. Yep, that's her. And I had to learn to do that because I was trying to pretend to be a good person when on some days it's not a good day to be good. I don't want to. But I had to understand that I'm just Elizabeth. And everywhere I go, I'm going to be Elizabeth. And every time I need the Lord, he's going to be there for me. And so trying to separate, no, that's not going to work too good. That's not going to work too good. So that's how I kind of saw, even with the writing, just be you wherever you are. And however your writing is, let it flow. And he's going to get you through it however way he needs to.
Thank you
Amen,
so
Elizabeth.
much. Shemaiah, do you want to respond to that in any way or just clap? Do you have anything you want to add? Thank you, Miss
Well,
Elizabeth.
I love that because a couple of things like where you have to just embrace the things about you that may be not your favorite qualities. There's a line in my book where I talk about, oh, it's in the Joy of Naps. I talk about how intense I am. And when I was younger, my sister would say, "You're going to give yourself a heart attack." And I wanted to be a more relaxed person, a calmer person. And at some point, I just had to embrace that I am an intense person and that's just how it is, you know? And so I identified with what you said, Elizabeth. And then just that you just have to be your authentic self. Like, I mean, trying to be different people at different places and in your life, that's exhausting. Who can keep up with that and who can remember? And also, and I tell my writing coach clients this too, like just write how you talk, you know? Like if you're just real with who you are, your writing's going to be so much better. So as writers, we just have to be authentic too. So I like what you said and how you said it.
Well, thank you both. All right. Are there other comments or questions? Let me see if I see anybody waving or coming off mute.
I wasn't able to figure out how to read the chat. So if there's one in the chat, I wasn't able to.
Well, there's a very practical question, which is, can you share your friend's name who writes about religion and children's literature? That's a very specific question.
Yes, Luella DeMonico is her name. And she writes a Substack. I want to find it for you. It's called like something wondrous. Wondrous Reading. Wondrous Reading is her Substack, and she just started it. And she like this week she talked about Paddington. A couple of weeks ago she talked about this book that I didn't know anyone else knew about a bunny, a mama bunny who has all these kids and gets to try out to be the Easter bunny. And it was a book that I loved when I was a kid, and I found a copy of it and read it to my sons every Easter. And she talks about that book. So she's fantastic. And she has a book coming out, I believe, later in the year. So Luella DeMonico, and her Substack is Wondrous Reading.
Great, thank you. Well, I don't want to put MJ on the spot, but MJ made a comment in the chat or she said, I keep a daily win, quote unquote, list of small joys. And it can be from coffee to fun chats with coworkers, red azaleas, etc. And I think that sort of is in line with this idea of recognizing and celebrating small joys and successes. MJ, do you want to add anything about that, or say a little bit more?
Well, I was just, God, I don't remember where I got the idea now. And in this moment, it'll probably come to me later. But I just found it really helpful to just jot down, you know, the little happy moments. We all have them in our days. It's just, Shemaiah, you alluded to it, we're just maybe trained out of it a little bit. But yeah, it was just, it helps kind of take a measure of your happiness level, if that makes any sense. And it also, I find that it, in a weird way, it sort of serves as a values clarification exercise, because you're realizing what inspires you. Like you might take, like WIN stands for, and this is my spin on it. What does it stand for? Well-being, inspiration, and novelty. And then when you track the little moments, you realize, oh, you know, having a teasing little fun chat with my coworker in the break room supports my well-being, because we're laughing and we're connecting, you know, even if it's about nothing. Seeing red azaleas. I'm in North Carolina right now, and you know, spring is moving through, but not too long ago, the azaleas were like furiously blooming everywhere. And it was just a delight, you know, driving to work and just seeing all the different colors, particularly red azaleas. I really enjoy those. And the novelty is like, how many times did I have a chance to either try something new or learn something new about someone? So they were, you know, they're just little moments, but you get a lot out of them. So it is really fun, and if anybody's interested in doing that, I really encourage them to just try it for a week.
I think we all wrote it down. So
Yeah, I did.
I liked that it really, I like how you pointed out that it says something about your values. And you know, there's and I'm gonna mess it up, but that quote from St. Augustine, it's like you pay attention to what you love, you know, and so quit loving the drama, quit loving the you know, the stuff on TV, like spend time and attention on things you truly want to value and be part of your values. So I love that. And I like your acronym too. So I saw several of you writing it down like I did.
Well, and I'll just add something. I see Red Refried Bean has their hands up. Let me just say one thing and then I'll go to you, Refried Bean, which is actually, I was gonna give you a shout out, which is I just moved to a new house a year ago. And so I'm still sorting through books. I brought so many books, 26 boxes of books. And what I did is I was sorting them as I made a pile of all the writers that I've met in the 8 years that I've been really, you know, working as a writer. And there was like 40 books of people that I've encountered, you know, that I never would have met. And so some of those folks are online, like Refried Bean. I have several of Refried Bean's books are amazing. And I see that we have Kathy Bostrom here. And let's see, there's another Sue Fulmore is here. I have Sue's book on my bookshelf. So there's just, you know, people like you, Shemaiah, that I never would have met or known or been in relationship with if I wasn't a writer. And so, you know, that's another joy for me, is maybe, you know, I haven't won back my royalty statement, and I'm not making royalty payments yet because I'm still, working that off.
But you
But all
connected
these
with other
people,
humans.
yeah, but all these people that we get to be in relationship with.
Yes.
So with that, I'll hand it over to Refried Bean, who's a wonderful and prolific writer.
Thanks. Hi, Shemaiah. It's nice to meet you.
Hello, likewise.
I have a question that I asked another writer, and I might just keep asking people what they think about this because it's something I'm trying to figure out. And that is, for the writing life, how much do you think that it's possible for, like, how like some blessings are for heaven, like life is going to be better in heaven, and like I was just wondering, like for in terms of discouragement, do you think that it's good to imagine like some things being resurrected and like libraries and career in heaven, or do you think like this is it, it's for this time that we have to reach people? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think that is such a cool question. And not one that I would have thought of. So I love like hearing how your mind works. And I I like daydreaming about that. I'm actually reading, oh, it's over there, so I can't reach it. There's a book called A Teachable Spirit that just came out. Swoboda, I think is the guy's name.
Yeah,
And
he's
he
great,
talks,
AJ.
yeah, and he talks in his opening introduction about the theology that we will still be learning in heaven. And he addresses that like scripturally, like I'm going to mess it up and not use the right things, but so I love that idea. And I want to dwell on that more. I don't know if I have like a great answer to you because I think that's such a cool question that like I I have to be thoughtful enough to not just like spout off something like I'm 15. And I wrote it down because I want to think about it more. And maybe yes, there's some treasures that are just for heaven and not for here. That's just beautiful. You're gonna make me cry, man. It's just a really great, beautiful thing to dwell on. Will you please write about that and then share it with me?
Yes, I used to suffer like with really bad depression, and I was working in a job that was what I didn't like, and so I was always thinking about heaven and how imagining what's going to happen, and then better thing, my life got better, and I started expecting justice on earth. I was like, why am I not famous yet? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I need to get back to the other mindset. So I was just trying to figure it out.
I also like that you have a question that you ask different writers too. I like that too. And I'm not a great question asker, so I like having one in my back pocket. My question lately is like, what themes keep coming up for you? Because as writers, I feel like it's usually like three things that keep resurfacing. The poet Scott Carnes says that all writers just write about the same three things over and over again from different angles, and I'm like, yeah. You say that like it's a bad thing. Thank you, Refried Bean.
You can hear some of Refried Bean's books right on my shelf. This is It by Refried Bean. So check it out. Lots of good books on Amazon and elsewhere. So I have another question, but I don't want to dominate. Who has another question for Shemaiah? And then I'll go if nobody else wants to go.
Can I say something quick about what Refried Bean just said?
Yeah.
I was looking at something on the internet, and the writer talked about writing about a place that you've never been, a space that you've never been, people that you've never been around, and a time that did not exist. And I'm thinking, oh, that's interesting. And so I was reading, I was studying for the Black Sea. I wanted to learn about that. So I saw poems by Ovid, and then I read poems by Phyllis Wheatley, and she quoted from Ovid. So ironically, something is in my head to write for people I've never met at a period of time I've never been, and hopefully something will be seen from that. So her question made me think about that, and which means got to get it written. I wrote it down somewhere, a draft. I have to find it in the many journals that I have because I forgot to take a journal with me. Well, let me pick it up and bring this one. So I know I wrote it down, so I'm going to find it. So by next month, I'll have it for you, Kate.
Sounds great. Love it. Okay. Well, any other kind of questions or comments? We're a little bit running close on time, so please take advantage of Shemaiah being here. Who else wants to come off mute and ask a question or say something? Got a lot of great successes in the chat, which I'm loving to hear about. Well, maybe then I'll go ahead. If I'm not seeing a hand or nobody's going to come off mute, I'm going to ask my question. All right, here we go. So Shemaiah, here's my question to you, which is, do you think it's fair game? And I know what you're going to say, but maybe is it fair game, and how can you go back and celebrate successes from the past that maybe you didn't have energy for or time to celebrate at the moment? So I'm thinking, I published 3 books, and I think it was just like life was happening. There was a lot going on, and there were wonderful successes, that like I got it review in Publishers Weekly, right? But I never took time to really celebrate or sit with it or acknowledge it or, thank God for it. And so as I was thinking about this workshop or this talk you're giving tonight, it's like, how could I make space without being sort of self-indulgent or navel gazing, to sort of look back at the past and sort of celebrate joys that maybe I didn't have time to recognize or savor at the moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That reminds me of just the Ignatian practice of the examen, and it's, for those of you that don't know, there's a Saint Ignatius who founded the Jesuits. There's a prayer called the examen, and you look over your day, um, of where God was shining through in that day, where perhaps you sinned sometimes too. But just to be aware of God's presence. And often I've gone to workshops where we've not only just looked over the day, but we've looked over the year, maybe one from that happens at the end of the year, or looking over your whole life. So that sounds to me like an examen of just looking at, look at how rich my life is and where you've shown up, God, in this time and this time. And I don't know, in my head too, I was thinking like, well, why can't you just, I don't know how you would celebrate. Like, to me, I didn't say to my closest friend or something like, do you want to go out to dinner? And I never celebrated, this. Do you want to go to dinner and just, because to me, just being with someone that you love and spending time with them is the way to celebrate, or maybe you could read like 2 parts of the book, or or maybe invite people over for just like nibbles, and you're going to read some of your favorite parts of them. There's got to be many ways to celebrate this.
Well, I
Oh
love
yeah, someone says that on the anniversary, have an
Yeah.
anniversary. That's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Right. Well, and I love your idea actually of the examine, because again, my mind goes back to like, well, what's the thing that was success? Like from the Publishers Weekly Review. Well, that's, anybody would say that's a quote unquote success. But the examine as a practice is, as you said, where does God shine through? And that's a very different practice. That
Yeah.
would be, again, I'm hoping she might even come off mute and speak, but she might not be able to. But Kathy Bostrom is here, and she is a prolific children's book writer and has been a real friend of Writing for Life for many years. And just meeting Kathy in person about a year ago and just getting to spend 10 minutes with her in the hallway at a conference was like God shone through. That was a moment when God shone through. Forget about public, you know what I mean? Like that was, and then you saying like going out to dinner with a friend, that person you love, like you're keeping us grounded in the God moments, not in the capitalism moments, you know? So thank you for that.
It's easy to get caught up in it. And like I said, I'm right there right now where I'm like, settle down, simmer down, girl. This is about trying to shine God's light into people's, life. So
Well, and you said on our other call that the guy at your gym bought your book and he's not a reader.
yes,
So you tell us
yes.
about that one.
Oh yeah. So there's a guy that like manages the door, and he bought my book. I don't think he reads, you guys. And he bought my book, and he's like, "Oh, I already read the introduction." What did he say about the introduction? Oh, he goes, "I love that bit about the trash bags," which I shared with you guys. And he's like, I got it right here and I want you to sign it. So I was able to sign it, and it's like it also gave me a moment to be able to say something to him that we in my family, all four of us just really like this guy a lot. He's just a special guy. And so I signed his book and I put may you find joy in the darkness, in dark places. May you find joy in dark places and know that you, just by being you, are a joy to my whole family. Which I wouldn't have been able to say that, like just as I wave at him in the morning or as I leave. But I was able to write it down. So that was cool.
Amen. Really cool. All right. Well, we need to wrap up in just a few minutes. Does anybody else want to add anything? Or, I see Yana commented the examine is a good practice for me. And I do love Refrain's Bean's point about resurrection. And, I love Refrain Bean that you included not just like our bodies or our spirits, but like libraries,
Yes.
and careers.
Yes.
Like
do we
the
get to see
resurrection.
Alexandria, Refrain Bean? That's what I wanted to. Are like, are we going to go to a field trip to the library in Alexandria? Like sometimes I like to think about that. That's so cool.
There could be books that angels wrote about us. So they witnessed everything and we didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone for being here. And a special thanks, of course, to our speaker, Shemaiah Gonzalez. And for those who haven't checked it out yet, Shemaiah just wrote a wonderful book on Undaunted Joy, the revolutionary act of cultivating delight. And I realized maybe we should have advertised this session not as dealing with discouragement, which sounds like such a glass half empty, but we should have advertised it as cultivating joy, because I feel like that's what I've really gotten out of this session is how do we cultivate joy as spiritual writers, and gratitude, as you mentioned. So I just want to thank you, because I really feel like I gained, I'll speak for myself, some real strategies, or was reminded of some strategies that I haven't been practicing in a while. So thank you so much, Maya, and thank you for being with us, and blessings as you seek undaunted joy, and as your book makes its way out in the world.
And please, like I said, to cultivate your people, like I'm on the social medias, follow me somewhere and let's interact, So I'm on Instagram, X, and Facebook and Substack. So I mean, that's how it happens, you guys. That's what
Thank
this
you
is
so
for.
much. And I'll just say also, this is our May 2025 session, and we're taking a 2-month summer holiday from our second Tuesday series. So for those of you who are regulars, we're going to have a little break in June and July, but we have a wonderful speaker lined up for August. So save the date for August 12th at the same time, and look forward to being back with you all then. And in the meantime, again, thanks so much to Shemaiah for your time and your sort of contagious joy.
Sorry, you guys, I infected you. I hope.
Yeah, you did. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and thanks for being here.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.